The next speaker that I'm going to bring to stage is someone who's a new friend. And the way that people always ask, like, gosh, how do you decide? Like, how do you choose the speakers? It is really a gut yes or no. And this is a woman who we had connected just to see how we could support one another. She builds community. She has an amazing physical co-working space in the Atlanta area called The Bakery, if any of you live in the Atlanta area. And she's built incredible businesses. An apparel company. We're going to get to hear more about that. She's built a marketing agency. She's a genius when it comes to marketing. She's created physical community. And she's someone who, at first meeting her, you know what she said to me? Anything you need. Any connection you need, anything I can do to support you. She didn't say, can I come speak at your event? But I was like, you can support me in this way. Someone who has this level of success and lives and breathes and shows up to serve, I was like, that's someone I want in my circle. I want your gut bacteria influencing my gut bacteria. Do you want to come to the event? And she said yes. So please get on your feet. Help me welcome Mz.Skittlez. You passed the test that there wasn't actually even a real test. She's like, my outfit for tomorrow is kind of extra. And I was like, what are we talking about? She's like, there's a lot of ruffles. And I was like, you'll be fine. So good.
Thank you. I'm so
being
excited.
here.
I am so excited. This is incredible.
I know, right?
You guys look amazing. Don't make me cry.
I know, it's like, we'll just...
I need it.
Okay. So there's so many things about your story that I want to dive into. Because I was starting today and I talked about how, like, if someone is meeting just this version of us, they're meeting this amazing, successful mom, entrepreneur, they're missing the relatability of all of our stories. So where do you start talking about the journey that led you to here? Because you didn't just wake up like this.
I did not wake up like this. I was a girl. I want you guys to make some noise if you made a dream out of nothing. That was me. My entire life, I came from literally nothing, raised in Indianapolis, Indiana. And if you guys know about Indianapolis, Indiana, woo, it's not much there. But I started there and I was very poor. I didn't also have a really good relationship with my mom. So I had a lot of other women pouring into me throughout my life and telling me, because I didn't get this support from my mom to say like, oh, you're good enough, you're pretty enough, you're smart enough. I just took it from the other women around me, and I guess that's what made me a girl's girl early on, is I yearned for that relationship with my mother. And because I didn't get it, it made me connect with other women. And so I started very early with this big dream, and I was a music artist, actually. I was touring around with all of your favorite music artists. And guys, I wasn't that big yet, so I was the person you see like when you first get in the venue. I'm like on stage, like, you know, literally like 10 people in the audience. And so I started as a music artist. That allowed me to build relationships. That allowed me to find myself, build my confidence, coming from a household that I was like really tore down. So it allowed me to become who I knew that I was going to be today. Then I went to college, graduated for fashion merchandising and marketing, and I started a clothing brand with $300. I had 30 t-shirts and a couple of phone numbers and relationships, and I sent 15 of those t-shirts out to my friends, and it ended up on a reality show. And that skyrocketed my company. And from that, we went to all these different trade shows. We were in stores all around the world. And I got a $1.4 million purchase order from Forever 21. Guys, I was literally producing these t-shirts. First of all, I was buying 90-cent quality t-shirts, so they were like hard as cardboard. But it didn't matter because the design was so amazing. So I was making all these t-shirts, got a $1.4 million purchase order from Forever 21. They're literally just walking through Magic Trade Show, find my booth, give me the order, and it sends me into a scramble to find investors or partners because I'm literally producing at the local print shop.
Because that, I mean, let's just like pause there because that sounds like, oh my gosh, wow, someone just, gave my company 1.4 million. No, they want to, you need to like make those shirts. You need to buy them first to make them.
You have to buy them first to make them. It was net 90. I don't have $1.4 million to get paid in 90 days. So it sent me on a scramble to find a partner or an investor. So I took all these fancy meetings. They were like flying me out, making me feel like the world was mine. And what the story they were telling me is like, you will be the next Juicy Couture. Your brand will be the next Juicy Couture. It'll be everywhere, stores everywhere. And I'm like, oh my God. Now you guys, prior to this trade show, we got a really big order, like a $150,000 purchase order. And it had to be, anybody in retail knows this, it has to be shipped on the day that the routing guy says. Guys, this day, FedEx does not come and pick up the order. I am losing my mind. This is $150,000. I fronted the full PO. So I'm like, what am I gonna do? Guys, I call a semi-truck company and they're like, do you have a license? I'm like, yeah. And like, I don't know. I was like sweet talking the guy. He just let me rent this like 16. Guys, I had 5 employees in my warehouse. I had them in the back of the truck with the boxes on our way to FedEx. They're flying around the back of the truck, all liability, okay? At this point, I was in a...
She got insurance.
I was running this company in an apartment. I had moved from Cleveland, Ohio to Indianapolis in IKEA furniture, okay? I'm running this whole showroom from my apartment, driving a 16-wheeler, crying my eyes out and saying, if I don't make it, my brand is over. And so when you go through that experience, it dilutes the value of what you think that you bring to the table. So when I was sitting in front of these guys that was selling me this big dream, I see myself being so small. I didn't see myself as, you started a brand with $300, you've grown to $4 million in revenue with no investors, no loans, no rich boyfriends, no reality shows.
You figured out how to drive a semi.
I figured it out, but I still felt so small. So I didn't really negotiate for what I was worth. And that's the biggest thing that I want you guys to take away, is you are only as good as what you negotiate. So when I sat in front of those guys, they were like, you'll have this, you'll have this. I'm like, perfect. I want 60% of my company. They're like, great. I'm like, I want a sign-in bonus because I'm moving to New York. They're like, fine. But what I didn't read was that I was a B member on an A board, and A members had the right to vote me off at any time, which means that I was fired from my company at any point in time. And guess what, guys? 6 months later, within the first 3 months, they fired the operation manager that knew how to read the routing guide for Forever 21. So we never even got to ship our products to Forever 21. So now I'm in this big contract. They're asking me for projections of a brand, and the reason why I signed to them was so I could get in Forever 21. We would have met our goal, and they fired the person. So I'm literally so frustrated. I'm arguing with them back and forth. And I had my small retail store in Atlanta, and someone came to me and said, I need you, I felt it in my spirit to buy my retail store out of the deal. So I walked into their office and I said, hey, I don't want to fire these girls that have worked for me for 3 years. They're moms, they're I wasn't even a mom at the time. I'm like, they have sacrificed so much for me. I want to keep this store open. And they were like, give us $30,000. I gave them $30,000. I bought my retail store out of the deal. You guys, God knew that I needed to do that because when I got fired from my company, that was the only place that I had to live. I lived above my retail store for 6 months fighting for my company back. And I can go on and on.
Well, and I want to make sure everyone caught that. So we heard that they could fire you from the company. They did.
They did.
They did.
Yes.
So you now have this company you have built. It's not your company anymore.
It's not my company anymore.
What was it in you that had you say, no, I'm going to fight for it?
It actually, when you put all of your eggs in one basket, it was literally all of the eggs that I had. I thought that this company that I built to be a multi-million-dollar company would go on and set my generations up, right? And when I walked into the office, one day they said, we're gonna fly you in for a trade show. And so I walked in with my suitcase, and I had a little dog. I have a little dog. She's been through it with me, oh my God. And I have my little dog, and they were like, we want to call you into the office. And they sat me down and they said, we no longer need you a part of this company. I'm like, what do you mean it's my company? They're like, yeah, so according to where it says right here, you're no longer the owner of Cupcake Mafia, and you have been locked out of your office, your email, your showroom. Use the suitcase that you brought here to go to the trade show to pack up your desk. I was in New York, in Times Square, and I literally went to a soup place, cried my eyes out, didn't know who to call. How can I call my parents and tell them that I got fired from something that I built? I Googled other CEOs fired from their company, and Steve Jobs came up. I'm like, well, I can't call him for advice. So I guess I have to figure this out by myself. And, I called my boyfriend, now husband. He's like, I just want to hug you. I'm going to fly you home. And I packed up my whole apartment, put that apartment on Airbnb, moved to Atlanta, stayed above my retail store. And I was like, I'm going to figure this out. I hired the best lawyer in New York that fought for apparel. And we fought for 6 months hard. And guys, let me tell you, that 6 months almost took me out mentally. Every single day, don't cry. Every single day, I woke up to 4 girls I had to pay every single week, and I woke up at 6 a.m., cooked breakfast. I put signs all over the door. I was like, this is corporate inventory, don't enter.
Really like your living space.
This is my living space, and I was so embarrassed that I didn't want them to know that I was staying there because I didn't want them to have job insecurity. And so I woke up at 6 a.m., cooked breakfast, got ready, and I sat in my car until they arrived at 9 a.m. every single day for 6 months. And when they left for the day, I would call my boyfriend like, they're gone, you can come here now. And they never knew that I was living above my retail store for 6 months. And one day, I woke up and I said, I am done paying this lawyer. I am about to fight. And I made a cover of a book. Well, I had my graphic team, and I made a cover of a book, and I emailed them and I said, I'm moving to New York to get rid of this apartment, and this is it. You can either be on the New York Times tomorrow with this story, and I'm gonna be a best-selling author telling my story. I'm also going to ruin the brand because I still had access to the Instagram and domain. I never gave that up. I said I'm gonna ruin the brand, and I'm gonna let people know my story and tell them now to support my new company. Oh, I forgot to tell you guys.
I know, we gotta talk about the identity piece.
Okay.
Your identity.
Yes, but wait, let me go back a little bit. So this is the rebel in me. So one day, at this point, my boyfriend had 10 retail stores, so he had stores everywhere. And I'm walking through the mall, and I see a big store, and I'm like, this is my dream location, but I don't have a name. And I walk in, and I'm signing the lease, and they're like, what do you want to name this store? I'm like, Cupcake Mafia. They're like, okay. I open a store, not owning my own trademark, named Cupcake Mafia, and they emailed me. They're like, are you crazy? We're gonna sue you. I'm like, it'll be quicker, perfect. This is great. I'm at least getting a response from you guys. And so they knew that there was so much fight inside of me that they didn't want to go too hard with fighting me. And so ultimately, we got down to it. I came to New York after sending them this email of how I was going to share my story. I came to New York. I negotiated from $300,000 to $60,000. I gave them $60,000 cash. I bought my company bag. And my boyfriend said, babe, this is in April. My birthday's in May. He's like, where do you want to go for your birthday? I said, I want to go to China. He's like, why? I'm like, because I have this address of when I was working with that company that we bought a factory in China and I want to see it. He's like, what? Like, you don't know if this really exists? Like, I was like, I just want to go. I went out there, you guys, with a bag full of cash. I don't know what I was thinking I was going to do, but I went out there with all I had and I negotiated to be a part owner in a factory. And I did that for 4 years. We started with 39 employees. I exited in 2021 with 139 employees, being the youngest Black woman to own a factory in China.
And that's all. You can all go home now.
But I do want to make a couple of bullet points, right? A couple of bullet points is, while I was on this airbed, it's important to have amazing women around you. So while you are here, please at least meet 5 people. When I wanted to give up, I called one of my best friends and I said, hey, I have to pay my staff and I don't think I'm gonna have it. I have it for this week, I'm not sure I'm gonna have it for the next 2 weeks. And there's a night job at Best Buy that I'm gonna apply for, but I don't really have a resume like that. And she's like, girl, if you built one multi-million-dollar business, build another one. And literally, that was all that I needed to hear, was someone else believing in me, you know? And that moment is where I started to believe in myself. So I created a community called Girl Mob to just pour, and I was doing classes in my store on Sundays for $20 to just give information of what I built. And now I have a very large community that I've built. And another woman called me from a retailer and said, we have a contract for $1.4 million and you have the talent to execute this contract. And I said, but I don't have a marketing agency. She said, well, create one. I was like, girl, I don't know how to do that. I'm like, and she's like, listen, you are the girl for the job. And I started my marketing agency, the icing agency, and I got that contract, and I got another contract, and I got another contract. And in 2020, the marketing agency did $16 million in revenue. So your dream, sometimes we don't believe in ourselves. If we just get one person that believes in us, one person that's gonna tell us we're good enough.
And the other thing that I'm really hearing too is, and I want to acknowledge you for this, because you weren't sleeping on the airbed waiting for that person to call. Mm-mm. You were getting up, and even if it was just the next action you could see to take, you were creating the momentum that people were speaking life into you because they saw it. You weren't waiting for someone to see you and choose you and validate you, and then you took the action. So you did believe in yourself enough to take the next action.
Yeah, I'm a fighter. I'm very resilient. So I knew that I believed in myself, but it's a different level of like belief when someone else says it, you know? It's a different level of belief, and this is why I think events like this and community is so important, because it's a different level of belief. I believed in myself to start the brand with $300, but when I lost it, it took so much out of me to say, you made the wrong decision, you did this, you did that, and like having someone that says, you've done it well, do it again, and that was all I needed, and I've just been running ever since.
So we were voice texting about just what we really wanted to impart on everyone today. And one of the things you said that's so brilliant, I want to pull this part out of your story, was when we attach our identity, I mean really to anything, when we attach our identity to a relationship, when we attach an identity to a business, and then that thing changes or gets taken away, that's, I think, the most difficult moment, because you don't even always realize how much your identity is attached to something until it isn't going well. And you made a comment about that, and I want you to also speak to the actions that you took in the midst of fighting for the company, because you still found a way to monetize this amazing brand that you had built. But take me back to that moment when they told you, take your suitcase, go clear out your things. Is that the moment you realized that your identity was tied to what you had created?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. It was everything for me. I ate, breathed, slept Cupcake Mafia. That was my legacy brand. That's all that people knew me for. It was the reinvention of myself after doing music and transitioning. It was all that I had. And so when you wake up and you can't use the very logo that you created, the very trademark that you created, the very fonts and, all of it, like, you can't post on the Instagram because you don't have access to the apparel, and people are asking so many questions, and I literally was like, what do I do? And that is the reinvention stage. I mean, make some noise if you went through a breakup and you had to start over. Right? It's very similar when you are going through a breakup or a pivot with your business. You know, when we go through those bad relationships and we like, I'm cutting my hair, I'm going back to school, I'm in the gym, right? That's what it was for me. Like, I walked out of that office and I was like, wait, I'm not Cupcake Mafia. Cupcake Mafia is shutting those doors that I'll never be able to get back inside to. And so for me, it was like, okay, who am I? What do I do? What is my talents? What are my gifts? And that is when I really found out, one, you're a great marketer. You built a $4 million business off of 90-cent quality t-shirts and great phrases. You guys, my first shirt said, men are like parking spots, the good ones are taken and the free ones are handicapped. I might have to bring that back. That was my first shirt, and so many women related to that product, right? You guys probably still relate to
that. A lot of women in here relate to that.
And so that made me think of how witty I was, how my audience, they just wanted me. They just wanted the phrases. They didn't care about the logo. And so what I did is I started to put those same type of phrases on shirts and sell them on Etsy. I made over $150,000 selling non-branded Cupcake Mafia shirts on Etsy. Because the thing about it is, you guys, if you were to drive past a red and yellow restaurant, whether there's a McDonald's sign or not, you would think it's a McDonald's, right? So the way that you're branding yourself, your packaging, your colors, your fonts, even without the Nike logo, you can see, oh, those are Nike. Even without the certain branding, you know, oh, this is that type of product. So because I built such a cult-like following, it was not an issue to separate the logo and still sell the apparel. So branding is so important. The second thing is really knowing my audience and knowing who that girl was and what she wanted. For Christmas, we decided to do an ugly Christmas sweater with Drake, and it was like a song. Okay, I didn't really know about trademark infringement and all that stuff then. Drake is also my friend, so like, hey Drake. But like, I didn't know then, and I put him on a sweater, and it said like, you know when the hotline bling, right? Or you know when those sleigh bells ring. And that went viral on Etsy, making over $60,000 in a Christmas season. So it really allowed me to pull back and really see my gifts was marketing, branding, and just being myself. It also, more importantly than anything, and I remember this prayer so vividly, and I live it to this day, is because I don't know if anybody in here has been on an airbed, right? But if you've ever been on an airbed, it is the closest thing to the ground. And sometimes when it goes lower, you just roll over and need to pray. Okay, that was me. That was like my routine for 6 months. Airbed is deflating, roll over, pray. And so my one prayer was, God, if you get me through this, I will tell every single person I know what you did for me. what you did for me, and I will also tell every single woman what I know. Because there was so many women that I reached out to along the way to ask about selling my company, partnering, what should I do, what should I negotiate, and no one gave me advice. And so I always made that promise that anything that I know. So when we spoke for the first time and I was like, however I can help you, oftentimes we don't get that. You could be the smartest person in the room. You could be the strongest friend for everybody. Meanwhile, you're pouring into everyone else's cup and you're empty. You're empty. You're literally making water as you go to like pour into your friend's cup. And you're empty. So anytime I get the opportunity, I ask, how can I support you? How can I help you? Because even if it's just one relationship, one call, one piece of advice that I have, I'm going to give it to you. And so I rebuilt myself. I built my identity and who I was. I also got a stronger relationship with God, and knowing that I'm always the type of person that thanks everyone. Oh, it was this person that opened this door for me. It was this person. And really, it was just God all the time.
And that was the thing about it when we had that conversation. It's not like people never offer support, because they do. I knew there was a bigger story behind why you operate that way, because I could feel it.
Oh.
So for the women in the room who are currently at a place where they're reinventing themselves, they're reinventing their identities. It's me. Hi. What is your advice? I mean, you have this brilliant marketing brain, but I feel like what I really want to hear you speak to is, if you could go back and you could now be the encouraging voice to that version of yourself, what would you want her to remember when she's in that place of just so ready to give up? She's about to roll up the airbed. The person who's right now in the middle of a huge transformation and an identity shift that they can't see their way to the other side yet.
I would say the first thing is, like, if he brought you to it, he'll bring you through it. That's the first thing, right? If he brought you to the situation, you guys, why are you doing this?
This is
I'm literally,
on hand for this
you
reason.
guys, I literally was so overwhelmed, so stressed, so depressed, and I try not to use those words, but in that situation, and after it was over, this is what came to my mind. If you wouldn't have went through that 6-month situation with that company, you wouldn't have known how to operate in China. You wouldn't have learned Mandarin. You wouldn't have learned how to create a tech pack. She
just slid that in there, yeah.
It was true. You wouldn't have learned how to create a tech pack. You wouldn't have learned what is a good deal, what is a bad deal. You wouldn't have learned how to advocate for yourself. You would have not learned that there is the ability. At that point when I left, I had 14 employees. I, to this day, have 28 employees. Last year, I had 44 employees. I wouldn't have learned how to operate that many employees. When I was with that company, I had 150 employees to look over. God gave me practice. He gave me practice. What you're going through right now is practice, right? But eventually you're gonna show up to the game and you're gonna win the championship ring. You're gonna win the championship ring. But guess what? Those people right now that are at the Olympics, they're not gonna win if they're not going through practice. You don't think it's tough? You don't think what Simone Biles does is she's making mistakes and she's flipping and she's falling? We are falling now in our business. We're making mistakes. We're at practice and we're falling down and we want to give up. But eventually, when you show up to that championship, you're going to be ready than ever. I opened a co-working space, almost 20,000 square feet in the middle of COVID with all of my money. I still have not figured out this investor thing. Guys, lean on me and give me some support. Because I have bootstrapped every single company.
Now.
I have bootstrapped every single company, but guess what? 2 years later, and it is fully profitable. It is fully profitable. So what I would say is, one, if he brought you to it, he will bring you through it. The next thing I would say is, like, write down your pros and your cons. I had to do that for myself. I had to write down, these are your pros and these are your cons. A lot of times, we are spending so much time on our cons, whereas for me, it was the fact that like, I'm not good in finances. Oh my God, I need to read Finance for Dummies. I need to take a finance class. Like I had to do all these things and it was like, or you could hire a CFO, or you could hire an accountant. Like it was, instead of me tearing myself down for my cons, why don't I push my pros? Why don't I push what I'm really, really, really good at? And if you guys follow me on Instagram, I ask my audience all the time, leave a review of what you learned from me. Leave a review of how I inspire you. And I read the comments because I'm like, I don't know if I'm inspiring moms or wives or single women. And when I read those comments, I'm like, wow, this is why my content resonates so well. So literally hear from the people around you and pour into yourself. Pour into yourself and surround yourself by people that are pouring into you. I have a small group. Some days I'll just say, hey guys, want to hop on a co-working day virtually? We'll just get on. What's stressing you out? 2 weeks ago, I was overwhelmed. I was like, my payroll is crazy. Guys, my payroll is $150,000 a month. Oh my God, I'm freaking out. And guess what one of my girls on the call said? Really? My payroll is $500,000 a month. I'm like,
Perspective.
I'm like, okay, great. Like, it will reshape you if you know that I know that what I'm trying to build is what she's already has. And if she's not complaining about a $500,000 payroll, I just gotta get through this. I just gotta get through this moment. And so that's what I would say. And before I leave the stage, I have to say one thing about my childhood. And my aunt lives in Arizona, you guys, and I invited her in because I never ever spoke about this. I never spoke about this, but there was a time that I was homeless with my mom, and we were driving around in our car. And I asked my mom, I said, Mom, are we ever gonna get a place? And she's like, this is the place that God has for us right now. And I never understood that. And 2 weeks later, this aunt walked into my life and was like, hey, I'm gonna move you with my daughter, and she's gonna take care of you. And that woman taught me what a bra was and what self-esteem was, and like, so many things. And so I couldn't leave sitting here with her in the room. Aunt Cheryl, if you don't mind standing up. So this is a part of my advocacy is for women that don't have a good relationship with their mothers. My mother is no longer here, and I healed that trauma early on, but it was the women around me that poured into me and taught me what it was like. And so now that I have these skills, I have to be that woman for other women.
You are. I mean, you are in the short time that we've known each other. I can't wait to build a friendship that'll last years after this. And you have shown up that way for me in the short time that we've known each other. So can we pour back into you for a minute?
Yes.
So I asked the panel this as well, but what can we do to support you right now?
I think, you know what? I'm in this weird transition and pivot. You're getting everything out of me. Usually we're talking about, you guys, I literally had like, okay, I'm gonna do this marketing tip and like, this is swayed a whole different way. So what I would say is like, I'm in this stage right now of like, I've worked so hard and built my business, and now I have to find what makes Mary happy outside of all the accolades, outside of all the things. And I know that so many women can relate to this.
Yeah.
We open our eyes and we're mom, wife, mogul, boss, all of the things, right? And a couple of weekends ago, my friend was like, oh, you should go and do something fun. And I was like,
Never thought of that.
what is that? I was like, oh, I'll take my daughter. She's like, no. I'm like, oh, I'll go with my husband. She's like, no. You guys, I literally drove around. I parked in Chase and was like, on TikTok, what is fun to do? If I'm not I'm like, and
Who relates to that? Yeah.
And it opened up so much of like, what makes me happy outside of work, outside of being a mom, outside of what makes me happy? I don't have hobbies that include doing nothing. And I ended up at the spa. Okay, I did end up at the spa.
Okay,
but
we'll accept that.
I just feel like it's in the stage of like, I want to find something that truly makes me happy without the responsibility of the title. And then the second thing is I'm raising capital for my co-working space so that we can scale. So any advice that you guys have with raising capital, that is how you can serve me.
Got some really smart people in this room
Yeah.
that would help with that.
Board of advisor, all the things.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for just bringing your vulnerability. I also thought maybe we'd talk about some marketing tips. We'll just have to have her on the podcast.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's what I would love to do. Because every time I go to stand up and take pictures with people, you all run to the bathroom, which is fine. Okay,
We'll take it here.
Please. We're going to take a few photos. We're not going to go on an official break, but I want a photo with you. But then can we, Aunt Cheryl, will you come up and take a photo with us? Is that okay if we do that? I want you to have a photo moment. But can we just please give Mary a huge round of applause?
Wait, go on this side
I
because
know,
of your wing.
my wing. Okay.
Edit out the tears. Everyone edit out the tears, okay?
Huge round of applause! Oh my goodness! You can actually exit right behind the stage and then